Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 and compare it against the Samsung Galaxy Fold 4 and see which specific phone is a better one for you. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, I definitely do think that if you already own the Z Fold 4, you are probably more than welcome enough to keep that phone. There really isn't that big of a point of going from the Z Fold 4 to the Z Fold 5, considering that almost on the outside, they're pretty much almost the exact same phone. There's a slight few differences for the most part. Internally, there's some changes, but I would probably just tell you, if you have the Z Fold 4, just keep it. There really isn't a big point of going up to the Z Fold 5. There's a lot of similarities between them, so keep that in mind. If you want to pick up either one of these phones though, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the outside, the Z Fold 4 has a very interesting folding design, same thing with the Z Fold 5. If you've never seen these before, they're folding phones, which is pretty crazy. On the front of the Z Fold 4, we have a 7.6-inch foldable dynamic AMOLED display. It's a 120Hz panel on the front and the back, which is really cool, but that's when it's unfolded. When it's folded, so when it's kind of folded straight down, you have a 6.2-inch dynamic AMOLED cover display. So this is also a 120Hz panel too, and it's also like a pretty good looking display. You know, there's not a lot to complain on it. It really is almost like something like a Galaxy S21 or S22 display within this type of device, which is honestly very cool. Now with the Fold 5 on the other hand, it is basically almost identically the same type of display. It is so funny how similar these things are because they are genuinely almost the same exact type of phone. On the outside of the Fold 5, you're also getting that same 7.6-inch unfolded display, but when it's folded, you're getting that 6.2-inch display. So all 120Hz, very high resolution. It's a good display. I'm not complaining about it at all, but I do think it's kind of funny that Samsung didn't make any changes with these displays, at least as far as I can tell. The brightness, everything seems to be about the same thing as far as I can tell. So if Samsung could make some changes there, that'd be great. Now both of them have USB-C ports on the bottom, which is also really amazing. And on the back, they have these frosted glass backs. So this is something that's cool. I like having frosted glass backs. They're really nice. And I'm glad these two phones actually have it. You're also getting triple camera setups. And as far as I can tell, this is probably one of the few changes I can tell on the outside of like which one is which. Before this, I probably wouldn't be able to tell which one is which, but with the Galaxy Z Fold 5, I'm actually able to see that the flash is now gone from the bottom of the Z Fold 4 to the side of the camera of the Z Fold 5. So they just did that one minor change right there, and that's basically what they did. I'm not really too sure why they even did this. I mean, they could have probably not even done that, but I think it's cool. I think it probably saved them some money somehow. So I think that in and of itself is a cool thing, but I do think it's kind of funny and random that they ended up doing something like that. So again, take it as you will, but that's kind of something else that's just kind of random and funny. Other than that though, the outside pretty much holds up as far as you'd expect it. Nothing crazy, nothing insane. It's a pretty basic change, but I guess they didn't even need to change that much because this is a very, very cool concept of a device. Now, in terms of the camera setup, like I mentioned, triple camera setups on the back. So with the Z Fold 4, again, pretty much basically the same type of camera. You're getting a 50 megapixel wide, 10 megapixel telephoto, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. Same exact thing on the Z Fold 5. The 50 megapixel wide, 10 megapixel telephoto, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. The triple camera setups on the back are almost identically the same exact thing, which is so funny. It's a random thing. I have no idea why Samsung even kept it like this. They could have probably changed it up a little bit like I mentioned before, but what are you going to do? You can film 8K video on the back, which is a really nice thing. Having that ability of filming 8K video is really cool, and I love having that. On the front, you're kind of getting a couple different front-facing cameras, but you're getting like a 4 megapixel front-facing camera. The cover camera is 10 megapixels, which is decent. And you can do 4K at 60 on the camera, which is nice. And, you know, for the most part, like I said, it's a very good display. It's a very good camera, and there's not a lot to complain about it. I think for the most part, if you're trying to go ahead and use some sort of device or use some sort of display on a phone, this is a good camera, and I don't think it's a bad one. I mean, it'll definitely get the job done for you. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's a great camera. But it's kind of weird because the Galaxy S23 has a better camera than this thing, and that is way cheaper than this specific device. Even the S21 probably has a better camera than this thing, to be honest. So that's another slight thing to keep in mind there as well. In terms of the actual, software and longevity of both these phones, it's a little bit of a different story because both these phones are going to be at different standing points, if you know what I mean. Like, of course the Z Fold 4, with it being older, is not going to last as long as the Z Fold 5. And that's just kind of what ends up happening with these types of devices, that over time, they're just not going to last as long as the other ones. So the older phone definitely is not going to last as long as a newer one, and that's just something that just ends up happening. But I will tell you, the Z Fold 5 is still going to last a long time, and the Z Fold 4 is still going to last a long time as well. So it's not like you're going to have a phone that's going to last way less. That's not the case here. The Z Fold 4 is still going to last for a few more years, which is really cool. So again, I wouldn't really complain about it from that perspective either. Now, in terms of the performance between both these devices, the Z Fold 5, or the Z Fold 4, had that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of it with 12 gigabytes of RAM, where the Z Fold 5 had that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of it with 12 gigs of RAM inside as well. Now, this is another thing to keep in mind here, because with these two phones, they're fairly similar in terms of performance. I really don't think there was that big of a difference between these two devices. So I think that's something to keep in mind in terms of the performance even. Now with the Z Fold 4, this was a very good performing phone. I think that 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset was very good, and even though it's kind of like a year old as of right now, it's still a very good performing chipset that still holds up very, very well. You could probably look at something like the Z Fold 4 and still use this phone for many, many years. It had one of the best chipsets of last year, and that means it still has a really good chipset for this year as well. With the 8 Gen 2 that's inside of the Z Fold 5, I still think that's a very good chipset too. I mean, that's a very, very good performing chipset, and it's better than the 8 Plus Gen 1, but I still think that the 8 Plus Gen 1 is still very good. With any games that you're going to throw at this thing, it's going to hold up very, very well. If you're playing any sort of big intensive games, if you're video editing on your 8 Gen 2 or 8 Gen Plus Gen 1, you're still going to be getting very good performing chipsets and very good performing phones from these devices, which is very, very cool to have. But I will tell you, if you have something like the Z Fold 4, you're still going to be perfectly fine. You're really not going to feel like you are missing out on any device or anything like that either. It's a very good performing device on both these, but I think the Z Fold 5 probably is the better performing one when it comes down from that perspective as well. On top of that, the batteries inside are very similar, 4400 mAh batteries on both these phones. So again, it's not like you're getting a way better performing phone from one in terms of battery. I really do think you're getting basically the same type of battery performance from both these devices. So once again, that's just another funny thing that there's very few differences between them, once again. And to be honest, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll probably tell you, I really do think that both these phones are very, very solid. I think they're very cool, and that's something that's really nice between both these devices. But the thing to kind of keep in mind here is that the Z Fold 4 is so similar to the Z Fold 5 that there just isn't that big of a reason to go ahead and use something like the Z Fold 5 anymore, if I'm being honest. You should just go ahead and probably buy something like the Z Fold 4 and just kind of move on with your life. I think the Z Fold 4 is a better, cheaper option for the most part, and that's kind of what makes the most amount of sense to me. I don't really think it makes a lot of sense for something like the Z Fold 5 unless you're wanting to go and buy it and kind of, use it like that. For the most part, it makes a lot more sense to buy something like the Z Fold 4 and just have a phone that's going to be cheaper in some ways, and you can still use it and still be perfectly fine for the most part. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.